and access management. And to spearhead the discussion for today, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Lucas Chigibati, CEO, Ghanaian Research Academic Network, GARNET, who will be serving as our moderator for the panel discussion. I would also crave your kind indulgence to read some profiles on our panelists for the discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished personnel is an academic and researcher at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST in Ghana, where he specializes in computational mathematics, scientific computing, and industrial modeling. He holds a PhD in mathematics and has contributed extensively to fields such as numerical analysis, differential equations, and machine learning. He is a lead scientist for Ghana's first high-performance computing HPC laboratory housed at KNUST and serves as the Director of Scientific and Technical Computing at the National Institute for Mathematical Sciences, NIMS, in Ghana. His research interests include high-performance computing, functional differential equations, human identification, and data analytics. He has also played a key role in international projects, collaborating with organizations such as the United Nations, WHO, and UNESCO, just to name a few. In addition to his research, our high-learned prof has served as a university IT consultant and has mentored numerous graduate students, contributing significantly to the development of the next generation of scientists in Africa, DSI Africa, KNUST Mathematics. With a thunderous applause, help me welcome Professor Peter Amwanku Erienchi to the seat as a panel member for discussion. So thanks for honoring. We're looking forward to tap into your field of expertise. To indulge you more, ladies and gentlemen, help me acknowledge our distinguished IT professional with extensive experience in academia and technology management. He currently serves as the Director of ICT at Accra Technical University and is also a senior lecturer in the Department of Computer Science at the same institution. He has been instrumental in driving the adoption of technology within the university, particularly in the areas of online teaching, learning, and assessment. His academic and professional journey is marked by a strong commitment to enhancing the digital infrastructure of educational institutions in Ghana. He has co-authored insightful articles on the challenges and opportunities presented by e-learning, emphasizing the need for robust IT systems in tertiary institutions. Our gentleman of the moment is not only in IT management, but also in the practical application of technology to improve educational outcomes. He's bringing to wealth of knowledge and experience to the panel discussion on strengthening cybersecurity in academic institutions, the role of identity and access management, where his insights into integration of ICT in education will be invaluable. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me receive Dr. Sylvester Hachu to the seat. Thank you, sir. Today we are going to be really equipped with knowledge. serving as the Deputy Chief Information Technology Officer at the University of Ghana, Legon, spearheading information and technology planning, security, and support. Our gentleman of the day also has over 2 decades of expertise. He has a proven leader in addressing human risks, information assurance, cybersecurity, and information privacy. He is also dedicated to cultivating a culture of technological maturity within organizations. He holds certifications as a Certified Information Security Manager, SIMS, Certified in Governance of Expertise Information Technology, and Certified Information Technology Business Management. He is currently the Isaka Accra Chapter's Treasurer and is a product of Aalborg and Portsmouth University, where he completed his tertiary education. Ladies and gentlemen, on this humble note, please help me welcome Benjamin Kobler to sit in for the discussions. I have now the singular honor to now humbly hand over to Mr. Lucas Chigibati for the moderations to commence into the discussion. Thank you very much for your rapt attention.
Okay, thank you very much. May I invite the keynote speaker to join the panel, because there may be follow-up clarifications on some topical issues. So please give me a clap.
Riding on all established protocols, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Dr. Sena Kpeglo Friaku, Executive Secretary of Vice Chancellors Ghana, who just joined us. Madam, thanks for coming.
Okay, so thank you very much. Our moderator for today's session was suddenly taken ill, so I'm going to be your moderator for this session. Our topic for today, strengthening cybersecurity in academic institutions, the role of identity and access management. We've just listened to the keynote speaker, and I believe we are all excited about the discussions that will follow. We are all here this morning to discuss an issue of paramount importance. As managers of ICT in our universities, we stand at the forefront of a rapidly evolving digital landscape where the protection of our institutions' intellectual property, research data, and personal information has never been more critical. In the context of cybersecurity, identity and access management plays a pivotal role, which is not just about controlling who has access to what, but also ensuring that the right people have the right access and at the right time and for the right reasons. So it's not only about just access, but access at what time, for what reasons, by who. IT directors are tasked with the responsibility of designing, implementing, and managing these systems to create a secure yet flexible environment that supports both academic freedom and robust security. The mics have problems. So our panel is now seated, and we will be asking them for their various perspectives on today's topic. So my opening question will be for each of them to give us their perspective of what they think identity and access management, how critical it is in the overall cybersecurity strategy for academic institutions. I believe the keynote speaker touched on this a bit, but I'd like to start with Achu. What is your perspective of and or why do you think access and identity management is critical for the cybersecurity strategy of education institutions?
Okay, thank you. I'll start from what we are seeking to protect and what I'll refer to as the crown jewels of the university environment. These are, first of all, the students' personal data that they give to the institutions, which we are entrusted with the responsibility of making sure it's safely protected and kept. And then the data that the university will generate on these students, which is their academic records. These two things on the student side is very critical. So we don't just start discussing issues about what to protect, not knowing what we are protecting. Now, if we know that these are the critical things, then we now have to talk about who has access to it. That's when identity management comes in and access controls come in. So for me, every institution should first of all identify the important digital assets in the university environment that needs to be protected. If you know that, then you can now go into putting the policies and then the technologies and the systems to be able to protect these assets safely. That will be my initial comment.
Hello. All right. So, Lucas, thank you very much. So, I would like to go to the roots of what we are discussing. I hear two things: the IAM, as we call it, the identity management or identity and access management, and then cybersecurity or security. So if you look at the identity management aspect, there are three key things that you identify. The first one is the identity. Identity has to do with validation, how you validate. So for example, you enter the university here at RMU. How do you know that you are a member of the institution or you are not? And depending on where you find yourself, access to things may be different. What you can access, maybe you can open the door, but you probably can't go to the inner room of the building because of the access. And then there's an aspect, the last part of the word is the management. And in management, you have to look at the processes, the life cycle of the processes, and sometimes the auditing aspect. In terms of, technically, we talk about authentication. So the first part, identity, the methods that you will use to deal with them will be authentication. And so normally you have to ask yourself, do you have an authentication mechanism in your setup? This is just continuing from where you left off. Then you have to look at authorization. Yes, you are authenticated, you are validated, but are you authorized to have access? And then you look at management life cycle. For example, a student entered the university, completed. Does he still have access to it? You look at the life cycle to do garbage collection and the rest so that you make sure that they don't stay there. Then you have auditing. This is the most important part. I'm saying this because anytime you hear about the security of an establishment and you look at how you intend to resolve them, you need data. The things that I mentioned are the sources of data that you're going to use to prevent the security problems that you have. So, for example, you have, say, intrusion. Intrusion means that an identity or someone who is not part of your system has entered your system. How do you authenticate this particular entity or identity? How do you check and make sure that it's authorized? Even if it's authorized, it's or you can start discussing security. So I think that is very critical to think about your identity management if you are also thinking about the security of your establishment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, so Prof. Renchi has touched on critical issues that we would discuss further in our conversation. But I would like to listen to Mr. Kobler's perspective of why access and identity management is critical and why do we look at it so closely in the context of our cybersecurity strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Chikabatia. So, like my fellow panelists said, there's the people perspective, there's the process perspective, and then there's the technology perspective. Now we are talking about identity. Prof has gone into the various steps already, so I won't bore you with that. But then, as it said, unless you know what you have, unless you know the things in your area, you are unable to measure and then understand the various perspectives. Cybersecurity basically thrives on data. Data is what is used to do it. And the data is brought through different areas. So you have different kinds of identities. You have the people identity, you have machine identities, other things. Now, because of IoTs, everything is turning very interesting. So you first need to know the kind of thing, because it's identity management. You need to understand the identities that you have within your organization. Knowing them, then you know how to then validate, or for a better word, authenticate, authorize, validate them, and ensure that they are moving. So that makes identity management one of the critical things that is within the cybersecurity space, and that affects the organization. To add to it, we also realize that knowing just identities does not, there has to be some governance around it. You're talking about data. What is the governance around your identity management? Who controls what? What are the roles and responsibilities of the identities that you have within your organization? In knowing those areas, then you can have, with the governance around it, then you can have various ways in which you can actually control them. Because an executive probably may not need access to your NOC, Network Operating Center, although he's the chief executive. However, somebody, and vice versa, maybe an engineer also might not have access to very critical areas. But note that there's a path flow, there's a life cycle where data moves from different sources into a NOC. So you need to know and understand how all these things come together. And that is how your governance framework comes to play. Because basically, using that framework, you know that, oh, okay, students coming through registrations, and when we are actually enrolling them, However, when they come in, the judges don't come in. They come in with devices. They come in with different equipment. People outside the university interact with your organization. They share their data with your organization. How are you looking at them as well? So the governance strategy basically looks at the entire framework of the life cycle, the flow within which it works, and then it gives you that insight to be able to do all the other things that you have to do. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, this is good. He's talked about governance now. That leads us to the next question. But our keynote speaker, we persuaded him to wait to talk about just one thing before he leaves us. And in his delivery, he talked about the creation of sets, okay, and certification for identified institutions that manage critical information infrastructure. I'm happy to let you know or to inform you that GARNET was identified as one of those institutions. We've gone through the process and we have been certified as a critical information infrastructure institution, service provider for that. So now the question is, what is the process for going through and getting certified, and what are we then expected to do after that on behalf of the institutions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Thank you for basically bringing that question up, because I think when we talk about critical information infrastructure, which obviously GARNET has been designated as one, we are looking at the kind of information that, if compromised, would cause a detrimental effect to national security, the well-being of the economic and social well-being of the state. So, for instance, let's take, as a rough example, hospitals. If the systems within hospitals are attacked, and very recently, I don't know whether you're aware, but I think it was somewhere in the UK, probably early this year, the systems were attacked to the extent that things like people's tests and all that, they were not able to assign the correct tests to patients who had given out samples of blood and urine. So without these tests, that means that a doctor can't diagnose what is wrong with you. Or if he gets the wrong tests, that means he's going to give you a wrong diagnosis. That's a detrimental effect to people's well-being. When we look at education, for instance, we heard 4 or 5 years ago in Uganda, I think somewhere in East Africa somewhere, where students were able to hack into the system of the university and change the grades of all the different students. So someone who's got F plus now gets an A star. It's that kind of thing. So we are basically, these are the kind of things that we look at. But for me, also in terms of having being identified as a critical information infrastructure, that means that the government has sat down, decided that if anything was to happen to the GARNET system, it would cause havoc for the economy in general. So the idea is we need to protect the systems as well as the owners in a way. And by doing that, what we're providing is regulatory initiatives that would give you guidance as to what exactly is supposed to be. So in October 2021, we launched what is referred to as the Directives for Critical Information Infrastructure Owners. It's baseline guidelines that tells you that there are certain things that you need to have in place as a critical information infrastructure owner. And therefore, and you have to comply with that. Otherwise, there are penalties that the Act actually basically prescribes to these things. So I think when we always hear about critical information infrastructure and the owners, we should think about systems. So currently there are about 13 sectors. We've got academia is one of them, health is one of them, national security is one of them, the government, transports, and there are quite a few. The emergency services, I don't know how many I've said so far, but yeah, there are about 13 in total. And if you refer to the Act, you'll probably find quite a few lists where we've got all these CIIs designated. And there are certain things they need to comply with to ensure that they keep that designation as, I would say, as critical information infrastructure owners. I think, if I could just add this bit, I think for me, when it comes to education, I think very earlier I was discussing with my colleague Ben about research into cybersecurity products that our researchers in Ghana could actually start looking into. Because our researchers and our academics and our experts will be looking to find solutions that are relevant to Ghana, specific. If anyone is able to hack into a system and steal that research paper could be sold on the dark web, and it means that when those systems are installed, they would have found ways to actually compromise those systems. So for me, education in particular, and apart from student identification and a lot of risks, the main thing for me is the research, how we are protecting our research work and the data related to this kind of research work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I believe you are now free to go. But before he goes, are you able to take any question from Assembly? If anybody has any question directly for him, he will take that question before he leaves. Prof. Kwenu, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Given that the regulator mentioned research, I'd like to find out how well he is funding research and also his commitments to GARNET in terms of research activity, because there are some new, based on the subject you have, there's this future of technology and security. There are some new things coming which depend quite heavily on computational mathematics, which are the public key, infrastructure type of things. And so I like to get a sense of his thinking in that area, because there's this thing called zero trust,
Yep.
Okay, which has a lot to do with if you can sign, then you are allowed to have certain privileges. And I think these are areas in which we could also be engaged in research in those areas, and we could really benefit from significant funding from his authority. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Kwenu. It's always a pleasure to be in a room with you. I mean, the father of the internet, what more can I say? I think in terms of research, and I'm actually trying to look up, because the section in the Cybersecurity Act, if within the Act, I think it's 31 or 30, or some, forgive, 31, I think, thereabouts, we talk about what is referred to as the Cybersecurity Fund. Now, the Cybersecurity Fund, apart from supporting the operations of the Cybersecurity Authority, there are other things that it also supports, and some of them are in research. You find out that in 2011, thereabouts, we had a national cybersecurity policy and strategy. That's been revised. It's been, Cabinet have had a look at it. They've approved a new one, so the new one should come out this year. And this year, we should be able, in October, launch the revised version of the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy. The activities within that policy and strategy alone requires a lot of funding. You find that apart from putting certain security measures, academia and research comes as a key part of it. And it's mainly because we need to be able to engage academia to develop things that work for Ghana. it's okay for us to go into the international market and pick off the shelf kind of items, but Africa and Ghana have specific challenges when it comes to cybersecurity. We don't have the same challenges as probably, I mean, yes, some of the challenges are common all around, but we have our specific ones. I mean, when we talk about internet penetration, for instance, Africa will talk more about mobile device penetration rather than actual device like computers and all that, because most of us connect to the internet through mobile. And it's those kind of solutions and research that we need to be focused on. So I think it's more to do with ensuring that we could actually get the cybersecurity fund put in place, which is, it's still a bit of a battle currently. We're still working with the government and all that to ensure that financing is in place. And everyone knows that cybersecurity is an expensive business. It's expensive. So if you're going to protect critical information infrastructure, trying to ensure that we've got the right, we can invest in research and the products that because as part of even the cybersecurity's mandate, we are supposed to actually certify products. Now, the products that we are to certify, apart from it's something that we haven't touched because we know that we're not quite ready for that. Because we're trying to, as a very young organization, we're taking baby steps. And therefore, we've started off with the professionals and the service providers and the establishments. But after a while, these products that we're coming from academia, from product developers and all that, we need to go through a certain process. And it's only by collaborating with academia that we can get this done successfully. So it's something that basically is more to do with the funding coming through and ensuring that we could do these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are you able to take two more questions?
Yes, I can take.
Okay, two more questions. Let's see, I can't see very well from here. Is there any ladies up? Hand up? Yes. Okay, so you ask your question after that. You.
Okay.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you very much. I'm Alfred Kumar. Yes, my question goes to you, boss. It's about the licensing of institutions and professionals. Of course, I'm here to speak to the Ghanaian CEOs to find out how they were able to do this. I learned to charge monies to the institutions before they get licensed, and even individuals. And that gets me wondering. Imagine Mr. Kobler, who is satisfied with Isaka. He pays his AMF, does his everything. Now with you, again, you want me to pay before I'm licensed to operate in Ghana. And of course, CSA, we have the experts, CISSP and all these posts, we pay huge dollar amounts to those institutions. If you harmonize it, you can give us frameworks to work with, but charging us extra. Of course, even the services are not really available for us to remit whatever, or get money back on whatever we spent on the foreign one we are paying for. Why charge again? Especially the institutions. And that's a demotivating factor. One of the guys I met in one of the health insurance that told me, Charlie, don't mind those people. They said we should pay some money, so I left it on the desk. Thank you very much. Let's work on that.
All right. All right, thank you very much for that. Okay, then. So what I want to try and do is try and explain the difference between your professional certifications and your accreditation as a cybersecurity professional in the Republic of Ghana. It appears what have you got? CISSP? So have I. So we pay $100 and something. You're happy to pay that to an American, to help the American economy. That's what it sounds like. Because you're complaining about Ghana charging for the accreditation of, but it looks like you're happy to pay. But you see, professional certifications are completely different from what we are looking at. What we're saying is, we need to protect the space of Ghana. And therefore, because I don't know how many of you have gone through the accreditation process of professionals, but once we go through a rigorous process of checking your qualifications, we go to people that you've worked for before and ask them whether you did a good job for them. We go through a process of looking at your qualifications, checking all of them that made sure that they're all valid and everything. Essentially, what the CSA is doing right now, it's helping future employers cuts a lot of their work out of the way. Because once you are accredited and you're given the accreditation telephone number, all you have to do is go into our website, put that number in, and it will come up and show that you are accredited and that you are accredited to do A, B, C, D. Remember, we're not accrediting all services. We are focusing on the ones that are the most intrusive. So things like penetration testing. We need to be sure that the people who are accessing our systems as ethical hackers, because penetration test will say ethical hackers do the same thing as our bad guy hackers do. It's just that they can report to you and say, these are where your gaps are, please mend them, fix them up before the bad guys come in. But we need to make sure that they are good guys. And it means that we need to ensure that by your qualifications and all that. And sometimes you also have people who say they are ethical hackers, but what they do is they come into their system and they mess it up and make it more, put more gaps in there. So that's why we go for recommendations. We ask people, does this person done work for you? Did he do a good job? Were you satisfied? If they say yes, then we will give the accreditation. So apart from the qualifications and all that, what we're saying is, together, let's manage Ghana security by knowing exactly which professionals are in the system, which service providers are providing services that are intrusive. I mean, digital forensics, penetration testing, I think governance we do governance, risk and compliance as well, and then training. We need to make sure that the training that is going out is fit for purpose. It is actually, because we don't want anyone just coming and saying, I'm a cybersecurity trainer, and then they go and train you on things that are not relevant. We need something that is fit for purpose. So the reason why we're trying it's more, and remember, the CSA can't set, we can't, through the Fees and Charges Act, they set certain things, they look at certain things, they do a breakdown, they'll consult with the private sector, consult with public sector, see whether the charges are reasonable, and then pass it accordingly. And that's what we use. We don't just get up and say, we want to charge. We can't do that because it's a public service organization. But you pretty much find out that the reason why right now, as I sit here, I could tell you that Ghana has 1,300 cybersecurity accredited professionals. As I sit here, there are hardly any countries in Africa that could do that and say that we have this many cybersecurity professionals. And then the other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to develop the industry within Ghana in such a way that, even as I speak, if you remember 2 years ago, we signed MOUs with the cybersecurity agencies of Rwanda and Mozambique. It means that when we have completed the processes that we've completed, it means that a Ghanaian can get up, walk to Rwanda, and say, I'm accredited in Ghana, and you could get the job straight away. So there are reasons why we are doing these things. We need to make it look robust, and ensure that people are actually have, it's a very credible system that we're going through. Yeah, right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. I don't know.
No, so just one last question now from the Executive Secretary, and because time is running against us. She wants to know how many.
Right, you're right.
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have the stats here, but I could give you one stat though. In the Cybersecurity Authority, the male-female ratio is almost 50-50. We have that many females in cybersecurity at the moment. When you come to the national certs, you'll find a lot of females working with that. Now, that's a really technical area. If you come within the critical information protection, same thing. So it's not that we'll say, and you know, we have quite a few lawyers as well who are dealing with cyber law. I think they're that space too. Actually, there are more females in our cyber law, in our legal and compliance team than there are male. So for CSA, I could say, but maybe come back to me another time and maybe I'll have those stats for you as to how many. But there are quite a few females as well. within the space. You see, one of the good things is that organizations like the Internet Society of Ghana, for instance, and the initiative that the Minister of Communications and Digitalization has been rolling out, Girls in ICT and a lot, has made sure that it's become a more attractive profession for females or our ladies. So I don't think you need to worry there when it comes to the female side.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Sito. I don't know whether I can just. It's just a simple question.
Very quick.
Very simple. Yeah, very simple.
Yes.
I wanted to find out how an institution is actually classified as a critical information infrastructure. Do we get classified by virtue of the fact that we are under GARNET, or we have to go through some processes in order to be classified as a critical information infrastructure? Because if we are all under academia, then the fact that we are all under academia, I think we are a critical information infrastructure.
So critical information infrastructure, you see, I'll use two different. So critical information infrastructure could just be a system. It might just be one computer system that is critical. So if you hear me, you hear us talking a lot where in terms of designating institutions, you hear us saying you are a critical information infrastructure owner as an institution. So we're more focused on that critical system rather than you as an institution. So if there's a system that we've identified that anything goes wrong with this system, Ghana's in trouble, then basically it gets designated and we go through a whole Gazette process. It is something that the minister has to basically designate officially, and then we take it from there.
Yeah, then it means all academic data and systems that we have in the country within all the institutions are critical information infrastructure.
Yeah, within the sector, as I mentioned, academia is one of the critical information infrastructure sectors. So you've got the sectors, the owners, and then the actual systems themselves.
Thank you very much. So we thank you very much, and you can take leave of us now. Look, the conversation is interesting. The next thing we want to talk about is what are the challenges, the common challenges institutions face when implementing identity and access management. We are in a peculiar industry. You have universities which don't procure devices for the operatives. Students come with their own computers. Most of the lecturers come with their own devices. Universities generally don't procure end devices for their users. Yeah. So how does that pose a challenge when we are designing our identity and access management system? So I'd like to come back to my panel, and any of you can jump in at any time and express their perspective. The question is, what are the common challenges institutions face when implementing identity and access management systems in our environment, taking into consideration the diverse nature of the users that we have? Hachu, would like to start with you?
Okay. Hello. Okay. So I think you laid a very good preamble, starting from BYD, bring your own device, which is what most of our, even though it's not an official sanctioned policy by many of the institutions, because of the constraints we find ourselves in, we allow students to bring their own devices, and then they connect them to the networks and the systems and to work with. I go back. The major challenge is resistance to change, because these people I have my own computer. I've been using it. You've not provided me with a computer, and then now you are forcing me to go through some authentication. Otherwise, I don't have access to your network. I don't have access to the systems that you have. So people resist, including employees, especially in an environment where the authentication systems are not something that existed before the employee came. The employee is already working. Everything is open. Come to work, connect your computer, and start work. And then suddenly you say, oh, you brought in something that is supposed to provide security for all of us and the systems and the resources that we have by creating convenience for the employee. It sees as an inconvenience more than something. So resistance to these authentication systems or these new technologies and changes, which is mainly is like a policy, is one of the major hurdles with bring your own device environments that we operate in. That's one. I don't know if you want me to. Okay, maybe my other colleagues can.
Feel free to come in.
Yeah. Hello. Yes. Normally, I like to be very practical about these things. The implementation of an access management is an infrastructure dependent, and I think most of us here, struggle to buy equipment to start with. Most of the IT units of the universities were not properly established with the correct structure. So it started off by someone knowing another person who was good with computing, and then they create a small unit, and then it starts growing without looking at the full structure. You will look into what we normally call recorders, governing instructions, and you can't find a single line in these documents telling us what to do. Most of us have seen recorders about examination. It's very clear on what to do. Anytime there's a problem with examination, there's a line that you can use to remedy that problem. But you can't find, I stand to be corrected for those who have been able to do it. But I think that this cuts across many institutions where there are no structures in place in how devices that enter the network is supposed to operate. And once there's no, university thrives on rules. So when there's no written document anywhere, anyone can do what they want. I've seen people receiving instructions from academic board. I'm assuming we are all in the university setting. And they disagree. They will shout. But once it's a statement from academic board, everybody shuts up and then they follow it. So I think one of the critical challenges that I see is the fact that we don't have a written down structure in terms of how to do this implementation when a person brings a device into our system. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is the scale. I think that we have a scale deficit in our institutions. And so many of us are willing to go and, if possible, acquire this service. But this, what we are discussing, it's something to do with you being able to implement on your local system. And you need a local understanding of your network and control to be able to do it. So Lucas, I think that one of the challenges that we have is also scale. I've always said that when it comes to IT, you can do all the advocacy that you want, but the people higher up are people who perhaps will never understand what these things are about. So unless it's written down, it's very difficult for them to accept and put support for it. And obviously that goes with not budgeting for it and things like that. And I think just to support what you said, the user experience. Users want that when they enter a network, they just probably don't do anything, and then magically they are on your network and browsing, So because of that understanding, even if you try to implement it, they will fight you. I think that those from Kenya University will tell you the struggles they have to go through in implementing their identity management. Someone will come and tell you that because you put in this policy, I was applying for this particular grant, and I couldn't do it because you stopped me from doing it. And then it becomes a whole big issue, you know. So it's just because of the way we were set up as institutions and the fact that there are no structures in place and the fact that there are skill deficits. I think these are the critical challenges that perhaps we may have to find a way to deal with them even before you go ahead and implement them.
Just to add to Doc's submission, I think one of the challenges that we have is that governance, like he said, the way we are set up, governance is underrated in terms of identity management. Now, what are the policies in place to guide whatever you do? Even how are we able to, we've not done a very good work of helping those above, like those that we report to understand that just like accounting, finance, and the rest, it's a specialized area that needs to be looked into. And these are things that has to be done. People come in, we set up IT anyhow, and then we are unable to, there's no clear strategy, there's no clear governance procedure in terms of how identity is supposed to be managed within the organization. And this brings a lot of challenges in terms of, if you take away funding, if you take away even the skill itself, you know, you need to be able to also engage the people higher up to be able to, for them to understand what goes into what we do and then be able to move it ahead. So skill and also the policies and things that has to be put in place are critical.
Okay, so look, this topic, sorry.
Aspect of the discussion, and it will be helpful if we know from everybody exactly what they are doing, their experiences in their systems to mitigate some of these challenges. At the University of Ghana, around 2007, we recognized the difficulty emanating from people using different machines, different systems all over the place. So instead of a simple ICT center, we established the University of Ghana Computing Systems to bring out policies and so on to take care of these challenges. Fortunately, we have you who has been the Chief Information Technology Officer of that body, and Mr. Kobla is also coming from there. Has anything changed? What are your experiences?
Okay.
There? So others can also provide their own, so we learn.
Okay. So within the University of Ghana, we have, like you said, it's actually evolved to, now we are called IT Directorate. IT Directorate. So the name has changed. We've moved on. Okay, so.
That's actually the old name, yes.
Yes.
That's correct.
Well, okay. So, yes, so like you said, I mean, we have policies that govern ICT, the way it's used, identity management and things like that. I think my director for infrastructure is here. I think he's best suited to answer the question. But that's his area, his direct area. So I'll just give it to him to do that.
All right, so that's good. Look, this topic came up because as you understand, one of the core reasons why we have the NREN is to be able to collaborate and share resources. How do we do that? We need to be able to set up in a way that we can exclude others. In other words, we should be able to identify you that you are qualified to participate in the services that we are sharing. But we do realize that about 90% of our members don't have identity and access management systems. We do not have. So the next question I was going to ask is, what are then the what is the best approach to establishing identity and access management systems? Because remember, this comes with cost. I would like to give an opportunity for us to take views from our membership. But can we quickly go through the panel and find out what are the best ways, what are the best practices for establishing identity and access management systems, recognizing that this comes with cost? Thank you very much. Please, let's start with Prof. Yenchi.
Yeah, you know, I'm always tilted towards an in-house set of development, because eventually it's cheaper. It's cheap not just in terms of money, but in terms of sustainability and things like that. But sometimes I understand that a lot of IT directors are so much under pressure that they end up procuring and overly external services. And I think what we are discussing is core to any setup. I don't know how you would even set up a network infrastructure without this. I don't know how it happens, because from the fundamentals, that's how it is. Those of you who are even into software development, the first part of the software that you build is just be able to log in. Is that not it? Authenticate the processes before you get there. So I think it's a miss in terms of how we manage to have infrastructure or network without this component. The other thing I want to say is that you're asking about how to go about it. Unlike many systems where the commercial versions are better, this is one of those implementations where the open version is much, much better than even the commercial one. And an example is a directory service. Anytime you are able to establish a directory service as part of your infrastructure, you end up inheriting this identity management system. But that's why I mentioned the scale. If you have the scale, you would know exactly what to do in order to incorporate all the services that you have. But I'll just leave it here for them to tell us. Maybe they've done it. Maybe they are at a different level of the implementation. Maybe that's why they don't want to say that they have it. But I don't know how you would say you don't have some level of identity management if you already have an infrastructure in your establishment.
Okay, so let's make this interactive. Why is it that we are having difficulty establishing access and identity management systems in our institutions? The floor is open. You engage with the panel. So if you have any perspectives, any questions, please raise your hand. You'll be recognized, and then you proceed.
And maybe the level at which you are.
Yes.
I think some people are at different levels, but when you said 90%, it was a bit alarming that if all these institutions don't have it, then I don't know what is going on in the institutions. Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
So if you mention your name, the institution, that would be helpful.
Yes, good morning. My name is Richard Azuri from Bolga Technical University in the north. First of all, we have some authentication going on. We don't have enough, obviously, probably maybe 30%, 40% level. One main reason is that we would need extra infrastructure to run a separate server to manage that system. So that's actually our challenge, is infrastructure, because it costs a lot and our size is a bit, comparatively, does not give us enough funding to procure our own equipment. So we sometimes depend on support from GARNET, from Honorable Chikapatia here, and direct support, yes. We have to thank you once again for that. And I wanted to actually pass on a question to the guest speaker, but I didn't get a chance. But this is directed to the panel as well. How we, those of us who are in the northern part of Ghana, there is much harder access to capacity building when it comes to areas like cybersecurity, like professional certifications and so on. So we always have to travel all the way to the south to get access to these resources. So I'm wondering how various institutions and organizations are supporting the availability of such services and availability of such service providers in the northern sector, so that we can access these trainings and we can access these capacity building facilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe I just want to respond to that.
Yeah, just go.
Maybe not in the one we are doing now, but in many academic circles where accreditation is done, and it's like a trainer of trainer concept. Once you get accredited, you might also get accreditation to accredit other people or train other people to do it. So perhaps that's something that you could look at. And it's within the framework of GARNET. This is the whole essence of us coming together. So for example, if you don't want to come all the way to Accra, and there is a Sunyani, people are accredited, and they have key people there who have been trained to be able to do the train, not just because they have been accredited, then perhaps your members can just travel to Sunyani and have the physical training there rather than to move. So maybe that's something that we can discuss with the policy people to see how to go about it, yes.
So we take note of that. Are there any other perspectives? Yes, go ahead. Your name, the institution, and then you proceed.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Adamo Mohammed. I'm with the Sunyani Technical University. We have a form of authentication. I can say from the last week of June 2023, we have been on authentication. And so, including the Vice Chancellor, no one get access to internet without logging in. And it's been a challenge, the user experience, because they were not used to that. And so that is the form of authentication. But to be on resources like EduRoam is what we are currently working on. So I sent out a mail, remember, so that we get into from that level. And so a number of things come in here, and it has made my job very hard on campus. Because people now see me, it's like, all you care is username and password, and it's very difficult. But I'm much determined to continue because that is the new normal, and we are carrying on despite the backlash and everything from academics and all of them. I'm much determined, and so that is where we are. And for Sunyani Technical University, and we will continue to build upon it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to hear from those who have challenges establishing the access and identity management. Why do we have problems, and what do we think needs to be done to turn around? Because you will remember, GARNET developed a tool for assisting our members to deploy access and identity using open source tools. The challenge that we hear is that institutions are not able to make available servers as infrastructure to deploy. Is that the challenge for everybody, or are there any other challenges that we need to discuss? Yes, who wants to go? I remember that at the University of Ghana, we implemented Active Directory. Now, the challenge is that bring your own device. So if someone brings their device to the campus and you lock it down, in other words, they don't have access to certain resources, they are very angry, because when they are at home, they are able to do whatever they want to do. They come to the university, they log in, a certain policy applies to them. And that's a big challenge. How do we navigate that? Because I believe that was when our project more or less stalled. I don't know whether you people have overcome that, but that was a big challenge that I failed to resolve. I don't know if you've been able to deal with that.
Okay, so what we did, when we started with Mr. Chikabatia, it was about user empowerment. People were understanding why we are doing this authentication from UG's perspective. Now, it took one or two people to lose their they went, I think, one